Hello everyone. So in today's lesson, we are going to discuss about stability of LTI systems, linear time invariant systems. So you will be given a plant which is to be controlled. So as a control engineer, our prime objective is to design a controller so that the controlled system will be primarily stable. It will meet the given desired transient response and steady state error performance requirements. So if a system is unstable, then designing the transient response and steady state errors, they are all moot. There is no point in designing these things for an unstable system. So let us look into more details of what we mean by stability. Stability. So before we move into stability, let me take one example. Suppose we have a system G of S. Say G of S is equal to 1 divided by S plus 2. Okay. I am applying an impulse input. I am giving a impulse input to the system. Right. So my R of S is, so that means R of T is delta of T. Right. I am giving a unit impulse input. Right. Unit impulse, you should be knowing that it exists only at T equal to 0. Right. And everywhere else it is 0. Okay, it exists only for that particular time instant, right? So if delta of t, if R of t is delta of t is the normal notation used to indicate an impulse input. What will be R of s? When you take the Laplace transform, it will be equal to 1. Okay, so my R of s must be 1, right? So what is my output C of s? C of s will be same as 1 by s plus 2. So what will be C of t? C of t will be e raised to minus 2t. Okay. Now, to the same system, I am giving a unit step input. R of t is equal to 1. Right? So what will be R of s? R of s will be 1 by s. Right? So what will be C of s? C of s will be 1 by s into s plus 2. Okay. So how will you solve for that? 1 by s into s plus 2 can be written as in partial fraction form. A by s plus b by s plus 2. Right? So if you assume A and B are known, then what will be your C of t? C of t will be A plus B e raised to minus 2t. So C of t will be A plus B e raised to minus 2t. Okay. So in this response, A plus B e raised to minus 2t, which is the transient part, B e raised to minus 2t is the transient part. And what's the steady state part? A is the steady state part. Okay. So if you solve for A and B, what will you get? 1 equals A into S plus 2 plus B into S. Equate the like terms. 1 equal to 2A, which means A is equal to 1 by 2 and B equal to minus half. Okay. So I can write this as 1 by 2 minus 1 by 2 e raised to minus 2t. Recall that this transient part is contributed by whom? By the system transfer function. Right. This steady state part, who will contribute to the steady state part? The input function. Okay, the input signal will contribute to the steady state part, right? So you can see that e raised to minus 2t. This is called a mode. Okay, and who is responsible for this particular mode? The pole at s is equal to minus 2 is responsible for this particular e raised to minus 2t mode. Okay, if you see here also what are you getting? E raised to minus 2t. Okay, so what's the meaning of that? It means that if you want to find the transient response, what you have to do, you have to just take the inverse Laplace transform of the inverse response. Okay, you can recall what is transfer function? It is the Laplace transform of the impulse response when all initial conditions are 0. So transfer function is nothing but Laplace transform of impulse response. Okay, so if you take L inverse of a transfer function, what you should get? You should get an impulse response. Okay, so impulse response is what is meant by transient response or natural response. Okay, or in other words, the natural response or impulse response or transient response, they are all one and the same. Okay, so you can see here that the transient response is same as the impulse response. Stability has been defined in many ways. There are many notions of stability. Okay, one definition is in terms of the transient part. Okay, let us see that. One definition is like this. An LTI system is stable if the natural response or the transient response approaches 0 as time tends to infinity. Okay, So this notion of stability defines stability in terms of the natural response or the transient response. Keep in mind, any response has two parts. One is the transient part and one is the steady state part. So this is silent about the steady state part. Okay. So this notion of stability is applicable only for the transient response or for the impulse response. Okay. So as per this notion, an LTI system is stable if the natural response or the transient response or the impulse response is zero, approaches zero as time t tends to infinity. Got it? Now moving on, an LTI system is unstable if the natural response or the impulse response grows without bound as time tends to infinity. Okay, so if the impulse response grows without bound, then the LTI system is unstable as per this stability definition, stability notion. There may be cases where the impulse response or the natural response neither grows nor decays. It simply remains a constant or oscillates as time approaches infinity. Such systems are said to be marginally stable or limitedly stable or neutrally stable. Okay, marginally stable or limitedly stable or neutrally stable. So in such systems, the natural response or the impulse response will neither increase nor decay. It will be simply a constant or it will simply oscillate, okay, with constant amplitude as time tends to infinity. Such systems are said to be marginally stable or limitedly stable or neutrally stable. And practically, such systems will become unstable. Why? Because I told you in practical scenario, there will be some disturbances, some unwanted signals will be there, disturbances or some noises, okay? So they will shift, they will pull the system to they will make the system unstable. We will see that in later. Okay, so this definition of stability implies that only the forced response remains as the natural response approaches zero. Okay, because a stable system, for a stable system, the natural response or the impulse response will decay as time tends to infinity, decays to zero as time tends to infinity. So, so at steady state, we are left out with only the steady state part or the forcing part. Okay, forced response part. Okay. Now, so you see in the transient part or the impulse response or the natural response is a part of the total response. Okay, so always it is difficult to split up the total response into impulse response or the natural response and the forced response. Okay, so what we have to do now, there is another notion of stability, and that is called BIBO stability or bounded input, bounded output stability. Okay, so before that, we should understand what we mean by bounded signal. What do you mean by bounded signal? Bounded signal is one which is limited, which is bounded in amplitude. Say, for example, this exponential decay. This signal is bounded. Okay, this exponential rise is also bounded in amplitude, or the step input of magnitude 1, that is also a bounded input. Similarly, this damped sinusoid, that is also bounded. You can see its amplitude is of finite, right? Similarly, this continuous oscillation, that is also bounded. Okay, so these are all bounded signals. Bounded signals means which are those limited or limited in magnitude. Okay, which are clipped at a particular level in magnitude point of view. What do you mean by unbounded signals? Unbounded signals means those which will grow, which will diverge as time tends to infinity. So e raised to 0.1 t. When t equal to infinity, e raised to 0.1 into infinity becomes infinity. Or when minus of e raised to 0.1 t, that will also become minus infinity, right? They are diverging. Okay, so such signals are all examples for unbounded signals. Okay, similarly, f of t equal to t square, right? So quadratic in time, right? So when t equal to infinity, that becomes infinity. Similarly, growing sinusoid like this, e raised to 0.1 t sin t, exponential sinusoid, that is also unbounded. Okay, so bounded means which is limited in magnitude or in amplitude. So based on that, there is a concept called BIBO stability or bounded input, bounded output stability. What is that? A system is stable if every bounded input yields a bounded output. Okay, so bounded output means it's in totality, right? Both the transient part and the steady state part, or both the impulse response or the natural response plus the forced response. Okay, so here the bounded output means it is output is in totality, both the transient plus the steady state part. Okay, so a system is said to be BIBO stable if every bounded input yields a bounded output. Okay, A system is Bibo unstable if any boundary input yields an unbounded output. Okay, so it speaks only in terms of boundary inputs, okay, and bound outputs. But it is silent when the system is subject to an unbounded input. Okay, if a system is subject to an unbounded input and produces an unbound output, nothing can be concluded about Bibo stability. Okay, so stability is concluded only in terms of boundary inputs. A system is Bibo stable if every boundary input yields a bounded output. A system is unstable if any boundary input yields an unbounded output. What is marginally or limitedly or neutral or what is that? Neutrally stable system. Neutrally stable system. They are stable for some boundary inputs and unstable for other boundary inputs. Okay. So here, all the boundary inputs will not give bound outputs. So they are stable for some boundary inputs and unstable for others. Okay. That is how Bibo stability is defined. Now we will consider some few cases here, right? Suppose you have a transfer function g of s equals k divided by s plus a. Where is the pole? Where is the pole of the transfer function? It is at minus a. Okay, the pole is at minus a. So now you tell me what is the impulse response? You are given a transfer function. What's the impulse response? Eh? Keep in mind, how do we define the transfer function? It is the second definition is the Laplace transform of the impulse response. So this is basically impulse response, Laplace transform of the impulse response. So how can you find the impulse response? Take the inverse Laplace transform. Okay. So what will be your impulse response? It will be k e raised to minus at. Okay. K e raised to minus at. This will be the impulse response. Okay. G of t will be k e raised to minus at. So what will be the nature of the impulse response? This is time t, and this is the output. Say c of t. Put t equal to 0. It starts from k. Put t equal to infinity. It becomes 0. So it is a diverging. Sorry, it is a exponentially decaying response, right? So as per the stability definition, system is stable. Okay. So in this case, whereas the pole was in the left half of the S-plane, right? System was stable. Now consider a case where g of s is k by s minus a. Okay. What will be the impulse response? It will be k e raised to at. That means it will be exponentially increasing. Okay, so it is an exponentially increasing impulse response, right? So the system is unstable. So how will be the plot? It will be like this. Okay, how to plot that? This is g of t, right? You put t equal to 0. It starts from k. Put t equal to infinity. It becomes infinity. So it is like this, exponentially growing response. Okay, so system is unstable. So in the previous case, the pole was in the left half. Now the pole is in the right half of this plane. Okay, so system has become unstable. Let us take another example. Omega n square by s square plus 2 zeta omega n plus omega n square. Right? So the complex poles have negative real parts. So what will be the response? Impulse response? Take the L inverse. Okay. So if you take g of t, what will you get? K1 e raised to minus of a plus jbt plus k2 e raised to minus of a plus jbt. Okay. So to simplify this, you will get the impulse response or the natural response as k by b e raised to minus at sine bt. So what will be the nature of the impulse response? It will be a damped sinusoidal or damped oscillatory. That means system is stable. Okay, because it's finite, it's decaying as time t is tending to 0, t tends to infinity. The impulse response is decaying out. Okay, so system is stable. So here also keep in mind the poles are in the left half of the S-plane. They are having negative real parts. Okay. Now what if the poles are in the right half like this? Pair of complex conjugate poles with positive real parts. Then it is obvious the impulse response will be k by b e raised to at. Okay, so that means as t tends to infinity, the response increases, diverges. Okay, so it is exponential growing envelope, right? So it becomes infinity. Okay, so system is unstable, right? So we had seen 4 cases. Whenever we had poles in the left half, system was stable. The impulse response decayed as time t tended to infinity. But if the poles are in the right half, what happens? The impulse response grows exponentially. Okay, which means system becomes unstable, right? So for stability, we can say that the poles are in the left half of the S-plane, or in other words, if the poles are having negative real parts, system is stable. If the poles are in the right half of the S-plane, or if they have positive real parts, system becomes unstable because their impulse response will grow exponentially. Okay, let's continue. Now suppose you have a pair of poles, one pair of pole on the imaginary axis like this. Okay, so what will be the impulse response? K by omega n sine omega nt. So K is a constant, omega n is a constant. That means it is a constant oscillation, right? So we can say that system is limitedly stable or marginally stable or neutrally stable. Okay, system is limitedly stable or marginally stable or neutrally stable. Okay, because the oscillation neither increases nor decays. It is a continuous constant oscillations. Okay, so these kind of systems are said to be marginally stable or limitedly stable or neutrally stable, right? Keep in mind, we had only one pair of pole on the imaginary axis, single pair of pole on the imaginary axis. Next case, what if there are two pair of poles on the imaginary axis, repeated poles, double pair of poles on the imaginary axis? What can happen, right? What is the impulse response? It will be like this, right? So can you comment about the nature of the impulse response? How will it look like? It will be a linearly increasing exponential, linear sinusoidal thing. Okay, sinusoid is like this, right? So there's a time function. You can see a product of time function at cos omega nt, right? So the time function will contribute to the linear thing, and sinusoidal thing will be varying within that. Okay, so it is exponentially increasing or linearly increasing sinusoidal function. So the system will be unstable. Okay, so keep in mind, where are the poles now? There are repeated poles. They are a pair of repeated roots, poles on the imaginary axis. Am I clear? In the previous case, we had only a single pair of poles on the imaginary axis, right? Single pair of poles. But here we have double pair of poles on the imaginary axis, or repeated pair of poles on the imaginary axis. Then the system becomes unstable. Moving on. Suppose G of S is K by S. It has a pole at the origin. What will be G of T? L inverse of G of S, that is K, which is a constant. Okay. So inverse response. So the system is marginally stable or limitedly stable or neutrally stable. Neutrally stable. Fine. Now, if you have a repeated pair of pole on the origin, what happens? What will be the impulse response? G of T? It will be KT. Okay. So it is unstable, right? It will simply increase, linearly increasing time function. So it is an unstable system. So what's the conclusion? Conclusion is that the j omega axis in the S-plane is the stability boundary or stability limit. Okay, it is a stability boundary or the stability limit. So, so long as the poles are in the left half of the S-plane, system is stable. And if the poles are on the right half of the S-plane, the system is unstable. If you have unrepeated pair of poles on the imaginary axis, system is limitedly stable or marginally stable. On the other hand, if you have repeated roots on the imaginary axis, then the system is unstable. Okay. So to conclude, if all the roots of the Kats's equation, what do you mean by Kats's equation? The denominator of the transfer function, right? Denominator of the closed loop transfer function is called Kats's equation, or you can say they are the poles. Okay. So if all the roots of the Kats's equation, or if all the poles of the system are in the left half, then the system is stable. Okay, because the output will be bounded for bounded inputs. If any root of the Kats's equation or any of the poles are in the right half, then the system is unstable. If the Kats's equation has repeated roots, or if there are repeated poles on the imaginary axis, then the system is again unstable. If one or more repeated roots, non-repeated roots are on the j omega axis, then the system is marginally stable or limitedly stable or neutrally stable. Okay. So for if the Kats's equation is quadratic or cubic to the maximum possible level, cubic, then we can factorize that, right, and see where are the poles located. But what if your system is of 5th order or 10th order, something like that? Then it is not possible to factorize the Kats's equation, right? So two chaps, Ruth and Hurwitz, is a Routh and a Hurwitz. They came up with a criterion called Routh-Hurwitz criterion. Okay, both were in different places at that time. Some in 1800s or 1900s. They were far away. Okay, one was in France and one was in somewhere in US, I think, right? So they parallelly independently developed this condition. Okay, and that is why this condition is called Routh-Hurwitz criterion, right? It can be readily applied to the Kac equation and it yields absolute stability information. What do you mean by absolute stability information? Is my system stable? Yes or no? Okay, so it will tell you whether the system is stable or not. Absolute stability information. It will not tell if it is stable, how much relatively stable it is, or what is the degree of stability. That information cannot be given by this Routh-Hurwitz criterion. It will simply tell whether the system is stable or whether the system is not. That much information only it can convey. There is no need to solve for the closed tube system poles. Okay, we need not factorize for all the poles. Okay, it's an easy technique. This is necessary and sufficient condition for checking the stability of LTI systems, right? And it is valid only if the Kac equation is algebraic. It gives the number of closed tube poles in the right half S-plane. It will not tell you where they are located. Say, for example, I have a cubic order polynomial, say s plus 1 into s plus 2 into s minus 3, right? So if you do this condition, it will tell one pole is in the right half. It will not tell the pole is at plus 3, s equal to plus 3. That information, that location information, it will not give you. It will simply tell how many poles are in the right half. There are one number of poles or two number of poles. It will not tell you where exactly the right half plane poles are located. Now let us see what is Routh-Hurwitz criterion. Suppose we have the Kac equation like this. Okay, what is Kac equation? The denominator of the closed loop transfer function g by 1 plus gh. Right. So 1 plus gh is the characteristic polynomial and 1 plus gh equal to 0 is the characteristic equation. Okay. So now I am having my characteristic equation in such a way that the power of s is decreasing. This is the power of s is n minus 1, n minus 2, blah, 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 s raised to 1, s raised to 0. Okay. So first step is you arrange your characteristic equation in such a way that the power of s is decreasing by 1. Okay. So an minus 1, etc., up to an naught. They are the coefficients associated with these s terms. Okay. Now what we have to do, we have to create what is called a Routh table or a Routh array. Okay, that is this. Fine. So it starts from highest power of s raised to n, and it ends at s raised to 0. Okay. Now we have to enter this, make some entries into this table. Okay. So see what are the coefficients: an minus 1, an minus 2, an minus 3, etc. Blah blah blah, a1, a0. Okay. So first row is constituted by the alternate terms, the alternate coefficients. That means an. Then next entry will be an minus 2. Next entry will be an minus 4, and so on. Okay. So an minus 2, an minus 4, etc. All the missing elements will constitute the second row. Okay. An minus 1, an minus 3, an minus 5. Right. So first row means they all comprises the alternate coefficients. The second row will be all the missing elements: an minus 1, an minus 2, and an minus 3, and so on. Okay. Now, so from the given Kac equation, you can always construct the first two rows of the Routh table. Okay. S raised to n and s raised to n minus 1 you can construct, right? Other rows have to be computed. Okay. So bn minus 1, bn minus 3, cn minus 1, blah, 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 hn minus 1. All other entries have to be computed. So from third row onwards, you have to do some computation. Okay. What is my bn minus 1? Bn minus 1 is an minus 1 into an minus 2, an minus 1 into an minus 2 minus an into an minus 3, an into an minus 3 whole divided by an minus 1. That will be my bn minus 1. Okay. So this entry will be an minus 1 into an minus 2 minus an into an minus 3 whole divided by an minus 1. What is bn minus 3? Bn minus 3 will be an minus 1 into an minus 4 an minus 1 into an minus 4 minus an into an minus 5 an into an minus 5 whole divided by an minus 1 and so on. Okay, so what will be your Cn minus 1? Cn minus 1 will be what? Same procedure. Bn minus 1 into an minus 3, Bn minus 1 into an minus 3 minus an minus 1 into Bn minus 3 all divided by Bn minus 1 and so on. So like that you compute all the remaining coefficients in the other rows. Okay, so this completes our root table. Now what next? Now, so that is what is written here. Okay, so all these things. Now what next? Now we have to look for the first column of the root table. Okay, first column means an minus 1, bn minus 1, cn minus 1, blah 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 blah. Okay, so we have to look for the first column of the root table, right? Check if there are any sign changes in the first column. Okay, or let me explain what's the root criterion. A necessary and sufficient condition for stability is that there should be no sign changes in the first column of the root array. Okay, so we had constructed the root table here, right? So first column. So now we will see whether there are any sign changes. Okay, so a necessary and sufficient condition for stability is that there should be no sign changes in the first column. If there are any sign changes, then the system is unstable and the number of sign changes in the elements of the first column of the root table corresponds to the number of closed loop poles in the right half of the S-plane. Okay, what do you mean by that? Suppose there are no sign changes in the first column. Okay, it means that your closed loop system is stable. Okay, now suppose there's a sign change here. Suppose when you computed Bn minus 1 it came to be negative. Tell me how many sign changes are there in the first column right now? How many sign changes? 1? No, there are 2 sign changes. Plus an minus 1 to minus bn minus 1 and minus bn minus 1 to plus cn minus 1. So there are total 2 sign changes. That means out of the total n number of closed loop poles, 2 are in the right half of the S-plane, which means making the system unstable, and the remaining n minus 2 poles are in the left half of the S-plane. Okay, so this is what is root stability criterion, right? Let me repeat that. A necessary and sufficient condition for stability is that there should be no sign changes in the first column of the root array. Otherwise, the system is unstable and the number of sign changes in the elements of the first column of the root array corresponds to the number of unstable closed loop poles. Closed loop poles being in right half of the S-plane means what? System is unstable. Okay. Let us try one numerical example. Using root service criterion, check if the system given below is stable or not. Which system? The closed loop system. Keep in mind, you will be given a plant to be controlled. Okay. So as a control engineer, I have to design a controller, put the controller and the plant, and then close the loop, close the feedback loop, and check if the closed loop system is stable or not. Okay. So always we are interested in closed loop stability. Okay, the open loop plant or the plant to be controlled may be stable, may be unstable, right? So you have to design an appropriate controller. Check whether the control system when put in feedback configuration will be stable or not. So always we are interested in closed loop stability. Okay, so check if the closed loop system is stable or not. That's the meaning. Okay, not the open loop plant. See, so here what's the open loop system? 1000 by s plus 2 into blah blah blah, right? Where are the open loop poles? Minus 2, minus 3, and minus 5, right? Open loop poles are something, closed loop poles are something else. Okay. So how will we check whether the closed loop system is stable or not? First, you have to find what is the characteristic equation. What is characteristic equation? 1 plus g. What is g here? G is 1000. 1000 divided by s plus 2 into blah blah blah. So what's the closed loop transfer function? This divided by 1 plus this into 1. Okay. So 1 plus g equal to 0 will be characteristic equation. That means s plus 2 into s plus 3 into s plus 5 plus 1000 equal to 0 is my characteristic equation. So simplify this, you will get your closed loop transfer function as 1000 divided by s cube plus 10s square plus 31s plus 1030. Okay. So this is my characteristic polynomial 1 plus g. Fine. Now what next? We have to create a root table. Okay, so it should start from s cube, highest power of s, up to s raised to 0. right? What is the first row? 1, alternate elements, 1, 31, 1, 31. All the remaining entries will constitute the second row, 10, 1, 0, 3, 0. So what will be the next thing? 10 into 31 minus 1 into 1, 0, 3, 0 whole divided by 10. Anyway, it's negative. Okay. What will be the next element? What's the next element here? Next element in this row will be 0 because there is nothing to compute. What will be the next entry corresponding to s raised to 0? Minus this thing into this thing, minus 10 into this thing divided by this. That means 1, 0, 3, 0. So how many sign change? Plus 10 to minus 1, 1 sign change. Minus 1 to plus 1, 0, 3, 0, 2 sign change. That means the system is unstable. Okay. So there are 2 sign changes in the first column of the root array. Hence the system is unstable. So you see here, what's the total out of the system of the closed loop system? It is 3. Out of the 3 closed loop poles, 2 poles are in the right half, plane, and the remaining one is in the left half plane. Okay, so we didn't factorize the characteristic equation to know where are the locations, right? So this criterion simply tells that 2 number of poles are in the right half. It will not tell where are they. Are they at +2 and are they at +3? No, that location information cannot be had from this condition. Okay. So now there are some 1 or 2 special cases are there that we will see in the next class. Thank you.